Welcome. I'm glad you are here for this. We've been waiting a little while to make this big reveal of stuff. We've been itching to do this, so glad you're here. I'm excited about this. First, before we go too much farther, let me just do some introductions here. Can I have everybody who's on the Sanctuary Renovations Committee, please stand up so everybody knows who you are. All right. We have Kara Patton, Debbie Henry, Bart Day, Peg Robson, and Carol Spires is as well, but she's traveling in Alaska doing some mission stuff up there. We've been working on this project for over 2 years, 2.5 years now, since we were getting ready for the 100th anniversary. So we've been going through a lot of details here and there, and debating this, debating that, going through core principles. A lot of you have met Pastor Jim Wetstein from Indiana. He's been our consultant. He's been here with the congregation a couple of times, and the committee a couple of times, and a couple of Zoom conversations with him as well, things like that. So a lot leading up to this. And I'd also like to introduce one other committee that's really starting its work, and that's the building committee. Bart Day and Kevin Robson, please stand up so people can see it. And let's see, Bill Truby and Diana, where'd Diana go? Diana's there, she's recording, so she's, and Joel, yes, I'm getting there. And Joel, so go ahead and stand up there. Yeah. So these folks are the committee working on the funding issues for the renovation project, okay? Now, having said that, I need to make something very clear here this morning. We're not going into funding, costs, things like that, basically because we don't have all the pieces yet. Right? We have a few of them, we have, I think, most of them, but we're waiting on some key pieces before we can really put costs out here. So, what today is all about is information only, to put the ideas out in front of you. And we finally got a couple of key pieces of some of the artwork that now we're ready to do this much. And that's why this is called concepts. And by the way, I would encourage people to come closer so you can see the screen if you need to. Don't be shy. I know we're Lutherans, but we can sit up front because it's not church. Okay? All right? So you might want to see some things up here a little bit later there. So these are concepts. These are just ideas. No decisions have been made yet. We will be working on that as a congregation. The committee's been doing the legwork, the research work, all that kind of stuff. We're going to put everything in front of the congregation for decision making. All right, and this is the first step of that, of giving you information. Another idea, another thing behind the word concepts here, and Mr. Altenreib has stressed this to the committee over and over again. Things that he has drawn up for us, his company, are also concepts, right? Just because you see something in a pencil sketch, a colored pencil sketch, doesn't mean that's the final look of it. It's going to look much better than that even. So these are to give us ideas, concepts, that sort of thing. So those two meanings of the word concept there. And finally, since I mentioned Altenreib here, let me introduce Andrew Altenreib. Please stand up, Andrew. This is Kevin Altenreib's son. And we learned not long ago that Kevin's been doing all of the meeting with us and arranging of things and getting the contracts or the paperwork drawn up and things like this. But he's going to hand off all the work to his son, Andrew. So that's why Andrew gets to come here. So Andrew, can you just tell us a little bit about what Max Altenreib does?
Well, we specialize in interiors of churches only. Ever since I've been working for the company since I was 21, 17, 15 years. And that's all. We specialize in churches and trying to make the communities happy.
Okay. We'll see a little bit of their work later in the presentation up here. 3 generations now? You're the fourth, okay. So a long family business there, long standing, so that's great. Okay, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to lead you off here with the core values. Now there's a handout floating around. I hope everybody got one. If you didn't, just let us know. Bart can get you one. This is the document that we put in front of the voters last fall, August, September, sometime in that time frame. I'm just summing up here what's on that document, just as a refresher. Starting with our core values for this project, we want to reflect, build upon, and enhance. I've highlighted the verbs here. Our Lutheran theology lived out in the Word and the Sacraments as we gather to receive God's gifts here in the divine service. We want to reflect, build upon, and enhance use of natural, timeless materials and quality workmanship that are already present in the space. So in other words, look at the pillars, for example, or the altar here, or the reredos behind it, the wood. We want to keep these things. We want to enhance them, build upon them, make them pop out, sort of thing. So no, we're not doing a massive overhaul. We're keeping the good stuff. Right? It's very good. And the third point there, we want to accommodate and enhance full participation of the congregation, both laity and clergy, in the liturgical life. How many of you have a hard time getting into the pews? Because they're so close together. Right? That's participation as well. How many of you notice that the clergy and assisting ministers, when they're up here for communion, are kind of stumbling over each other like Keystone Cops, right? Just because it's so narrow up here. That's what we're talking about in this point of saying, what can we do to give a little more space for a better participation of both laity and clergy for the whole congregation, that sort of thing. So that's what we're getting at there. Our programming statements, there's more detail in the document there for you. I'm just summarizing right here. We've outlined them by baptism, word, Lord's Supper, and chancel. And then also a space for the people. Going out. For baptism on the font, it will continue to be used. We want it repaired and enhanced. If you've ever taken a close look, there's some chips out of it. They look kind of ugly. We want to kind of take care of that, and out and right can do something like that. Take care of that. We want to enhance it. Did you know there's gold on that font? Got to look for it sometimes. It's a little dull by now, but we want to enhance it so it pops out a bit, that kind of thing. And we want it accessible, right? Notice where the font is right now. On the side, kind of hiding behind a pillar. I have heard one of our members of the congregation say when she first came here, she was looking for the font. Where is the font? Where is the font? Right? We want to kind of remedy something like that and say, let's have the font out front and center somehow where we can see it. It's accessible. That's one of the things we mean by that. Accessible also, the people can get to it and have access to it anytime, right? For the word section, pulpit and sound system will continue to be used, right? We're not getting rid of the pulpit or anything like that, or the sound system. Lord's Supper and chancel, the altar will continue to serve. The reredos will be highlighted. We'll see some concepts of that in a moment there. Again, we're building on the beautiful things that we already have here. Space for the people. We want to focus on improved lighting, improved acoustics. Right? How many of you look up at these lights and think, oh, they're beautiful lights. We're keeping the light fixtures. We're working to make them brighter, however, to shine more light. Because how many of you, when you're looking down at your hymnal, are thinking, what was that word? Kind of hard to see that word there, right? We want to fix something like that. Look over at the ductwork on either side. We want to make this as small as we can. Okay, we want to make them quieter. Right? How many of you have been distracted hearing the rumbling of the ductwork? Happens downstairs too, right? We're going to seek to make those things quieter. Pews, as I hinted at before, we want to put more space between the pews. We want to recondition the pews, not refinish them, but recondition. If you look at, say, the sides of the pews here, they're kind of worn from several decades of people doing something like this, right? To go into the pew, right? And so We want to recondition them so they look nice and sharp here. Liturgical artwork. We're looking at some paintings that will be images from Scripture that we can use for catechesis, that we can use for teaching, and we'll get into that a little bit more. And based on that, for that, we're focusing on the New Jerusalem, New Creation themes. Okay, again, all this is spelled out in that document for you. Our theological guiding statement, and you've seen this before as well. This is at the front of that document, first thing there. And these are just a few of the key phrases that have been guiding the committee in its work, right? Things like, we're dealing with sacred space. So no, this is not like your living room, for example, or like the movie theater, or like the shopping mall, or whatever. It's sacred space. It's used for a certain purpose, and that's God's purpose. Other phrases here that we're taking out of that theological guiding statement have been guiding us in terms of the artwork and what we want to emphasize in this space. I'll just tell you a bit about the story. The first time Pastor Wettstein was here, it was February 2016, I think it was. He and the committee came upstairs here to start talking about different ideas. Committee, you probably remember this. And you have to remember, Pastor Wettstein also did his field work here back in the 80s. So he was familiar with Hope Church because he'd been here. But then he walks into this sanctuary space and he looks up at the windows and he says, I had forgotten how beautiful those windows are. And so he raved about them and he said, you know what? That's a New Jerusalem theme. Those windows look like jewels, like you have talked about in Revelation, all the jewels in the New Jerusalem, right? And so that's where this idea came. Lo and behold, shortly after that, as we're gearing up for our 100th anniversary, I went back through the dedication booklet for this very building and found from the original architect the statement of what all was in the new building back in 1930, right? And here are some of the phrases he used: the gateway to the heavenly mansions, pilgrimage to our heavenly home, where the Lamb stands enthroned on the book of life with the 7 seals, our eternal relationship to Jesus. We found some little seeds already in the architect's mind back in 1930. This is New Jerusalem territory here, isn't it? And so we added some other statements in there too as well. So just to show you we're keeping connected with our past as well. Okay? So that's what's guiding us here. So, you know the organ is gone. It's being renovated as we speak. And that's why we have pianos for services. When it comes back, it's going to look something like this, they tell us from Parsons. You see the cabinets look very much the same, but they're reconfigured. We'll be able to see pipes on the front there and in gold. I think that will look nice with the woodwork and the architecture here. And you see open spaces down here in this portion. You will not be able to see the innards of the cases, right? They'll be blocked by, I don't know, some kind of muslin or something like that. I think they said it'll be dark, so you can't see what's back there, but it will be open, so air can flow freely through there. So there's an idea of what the organ is going to look like, okay, to give you a clue. So that's kind of the first piece here. Do me a favor and just look up at the ceiling right now. What do you see?
Brown.
You see beams, you see main trusses going this way, the big ones, and then you see beams going this direction, that direction. You see big beams, you see little beams, right? What else do you see in terms of color? It's all the same, and it's kind of dark, right? Okay, one of the things we want to do is brighten it up a bit, okay, so we can have light reflecting from it and make the space brighter, okay? Another thing we need to do with the ceiling, and this goes back to the organ, I had the acoustical report done quite a while back, and that report says we need to harden up the ceiling with 2, not 1, but 2 layers of of drywall, 5/8 inch thick, right? Now, we could put one layer up there, but the organ company says, well, that will reflect the high tones, but not the low tones of the organ. So pretty much what we've had all these years, that a lot of the tones kind of get sucked out the ceiling. Because up there right now, we have those brown panels are about a 1/2 inch thick. They're kind of a fiberboard type of substance. There's about a 3/4 inch gap, and then there's the ceiling boards. That's it. Then on top of the ceiling boards, tar paper and the tiles, right? So guess where our sound is going? Poof, out the top. Kind of like our heat in the winter and our cooling in the summer, it's going out too, right? So part of the renovation is putting drywall up there, 2 layers, okay? And maybe making it look something like this. This is a very early sketch from Kevin Outenried. And this was just a concept, again, of what it could look like, right? So notice the lighter colored panels that would be up there, and that would reflect light and things like that. Put that together with what the acoustician says we need to do, and that's one of the things we need to work on. So we have actually 3 different options for the ceiling. These are architect's drawings. Okay, I'll try to explain them the best I can. We do have these available if you want to look at all the details. I know the picture's a little small. Please pardon the shadowing on the picture. That's just shadowing from the camera above the picture, above the drawing there. So option number 1 for the ceiling is to put drywall between each of the beams up there. Those little beams that run this direction are called purlins. So option 1, we take 2 layers of drywall, sandwich them in between the beams. Behind that would be a little board of insulation, a hard insulation board. And then this dark line here is the existing panel there. Okay? Now, what you're going to have happen is that's going to fill up the space in those rectangle areas. We'd be able to see the lines up there, but we couldn't see the depth of the beam. Okay, just so you know, that's what option 1 is here. Option 2 that the architect has come up with is just covering over those little purlins altogether, making bigger spaces of lighter color, right? Okay, and in this case, you'd have your 2 layers of drywall just tacked onto those little beams. You'd still be able to see the big beams. And then behind that, some batting insulation for the sound, for heating and cooling and things like that. Okay. Option number 3 is kind of a combination here. It's the same, put the drywall on top of the purlins with batting insulation behind it, but then come back through and put strips of wood there that will imitate those beams and stick it out from the drywall. So that's option number 3. Okay, so those are some options that they've given us that we will have to think about and decide upon. Okay, so that's a little bit about the ceiling. All right, let's look at lights. Right? Don't you love those light fixtures? As I mentioned before, we're keeping them. Good news. Some people said, we like the lights. That's good news. We want to make them brighter. Put the LED bulbs in, dimmable LED bulbs, so we can dim them down, I think, on times like Good Friday, bring them up on Easter Vigil, that sort of thing. So we also want to have, we're looking at having different kind of not glass in there, but plexiglass type material in there that will let more light out. But we're keeping those. Another possible feature for lighting is in the narthex. How many of you can tell us what kind of lighting we have in there now? Didn't pay much attention, huh? Well, they're 2 foot by 2 foot square fluorescent bulbs. Fluorescent bulb fixtures there. Right? So one of the ideas that the electrical engineer offered to us was, well, hey, what if we make those lights in the narthex look very similar to the lights in the sanctuary? So that's what this drawing is about. They would stick down probably about 12 or what is it, 13 inches from the ceiling. Okay, so we wouldn't get into too many people's way. Sorry, Mark. But you're already dodging the beams anyway, right? Yeah. So a little bit about the narthex lights. Okay, we've talked about the soffit and ductwork up here. We want to notice what the ductwork is doing. It's coming right down on top of the arches for the windows. Okay. We'd like to have a little bit more space above the windows so that the windows stand out. Okay. And so we're looking at having smaller ductwork than we have now, which newer technology. That I think this was put in back in the 1950s, if I remember right, 58, something like that. They can do the same amount of air coming through with smaller ductwork these days. So we're looking at putting in a 24-inch by 24-inch square duct there, building another soffit around it, but it'll be up higher, and we should be able to get, the dimension here is about 6 inches above the arch on the windows there. Okay. Honestly, we were hoping for more, but evidently that's not going to be able to work out with our HVAC system. Right? So we're hoping to get a little bit more reveal there, and also this will be insulated. The ductwork will be insulated, and the soffit will be insulated. But we'll make it nice and quiet for the sound. Okay, that's the ductwork and soffit. Okay, here's some of the big reveal here of what we've been looking at. Again, I would stress these are concepts, ideas, that sort of thing. No decisions have been made. Look at that great colored pencil drawing there of the sanctuary. Done in lighter colors. Okay, and then notice this space up here, right above my head. That's called the Grand Arch, by the way. And notice what's up there now. Not much, right? Nice blank space. And for artists, they see that as a nice blank canvas. So what if we did something like put a symbol of the Trinity up there, called a triquetra with a circle in it there, and goes on top of the arch, something like that. Because the building can preach. Now we say, hey, there's a Trinitarian symbol up there. We're coming into, guess what? God's presence. Right? So that's one idea we're looking at. What else? Oh, by the way, please ignore this image and this image here. Those are on the original, and I couldn't very well cut them off. Didn't want to do that. But we're looking at, in those places where the banners are right now, of having an alpha and an omega painted on the wall. Okay, so that'd be permanent. You have something there, even when there's a banner not there, right? But if there's a banner there, like there is now, it would cover over the alpha and omega. So we have some different images there. Okay. You'll notice the flooring here looks a little different. We'll get to a close-up here in a moment. We're looking at taking the carpet out and having lighter colored flooring, having ceramic tile up front in the chancel, LVT or luxury vinyl tile in the sanctuary. It's very durable, very helpful for the sound. It'll help the sound bounce around, a livelier space. Okay. And so that's just an overall look at the sanctuary. Look up at the windows here, over on this side. You see pairs of windows. One of the ideas that Outenrive has put in front of us is, what if we tie those windows together with kind of a little, archway painted around them? Right? Then they really stand out as pairs of windows there, right? And then also do the same thing with the space we gain from the higher soffit on the side windows. Okay? So that's one idea. There's a close-up of it. Okay, now we're going to focus on the chancel for a moment. Okay, zoom in there. What do you see on the concept here? Shout it out. What stands out? What looks different?
Font is up.
What's that?
The font.
We have the font front and center up here in this drawing. Yeah, so you'd be able to see the font right away.
The lectern's gone.
Lectern's drawing. Again, this is
Like-
concept.
Painting around the rareness.
Okay, yeah, painting around the raredos. We have a little bit of it right now with the different shade of gold color there. We're looking at possibly some other artwork there as well. Just like medallion types of things or lines. What else do you notice? Ignore that.
Painting behind the rareness.
Oh, behind the raredos, what do you see?
Is it a window or is it just moving?
It's not a window. It's depicted here as a teal color. Alton Rive is suggesting that we have some kind of a color. We've debated, maybe navy blue, maybe a royal blue, or he put teal in here. Some way to make the wood on the reredos pop out. So you walk into the space and say, wow, that's really sticking out there, isn't it? Okay, so some paint behind that. Okay, and you also notice, look up in the current chancel here, you see some crown molding up there. We're looking at having that removed so that the chancel can look different, stand out. Right? We keep the crown molding out here, but possibly have it removed back here so the chancel is set apart, sacred space. Okay. All right. You also notice down here, we're looking at taking this step out, keeping the altar where it is, and it would look like it's on a platform, but take this step out. How many of you know what that step is for, besides tripping up the pastor? Anybody know what that's there for? That's where the communion rail used to be. Right? So it was necessary when the communion rail was up there. But in 1986, the communion rail was moved down here. So that step can go bye-bye, and then we have just an open space up there, which is safer for clergy and assistants there to move around, and we're not stumbling over the step, right? Things like that. Another thing you see depicted here is a harder surface than carpet. Again, I mentioned ceramic tile of some kind, right? Again, that will help with the sound, reverberations and things like that, echoing and being a livelier space. And then LVT, or luxury vinyl tile, out in what we call the sanctuary, the nave space, right? And they would match in color and things like that. So those are still things we're looking at and we'll have to make decisions on. Okay, I think that's it on the chancel space. Zoom out a little bit, and what do you notice right in here in this concept? A little wider space between pews right up front for, say, the first couple of rows. Okay, so there can be more space for, say, somebody with wheelchairs, or when there's a funeral, the casket can be turned around, that sort of thing. Or if we have musical groups here, there's more space to put some chairs out here for them or something like that. Okay? Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned congestion back where you're about to stand right now.
Mm-hmm.
What have you done to remove the congestion, the problem with congestion?
That's the next slide.
Oh.
Focus on the, thank you for leading us there. Focus on the communion rail there. What we're looking at is bumping the communion rail out a little bit, and also getting rid of the corner turn here How many of you think that's a little awkward when you're coming up here? We're filing down here, and then nobody knows what to do on that corner, right? Do I go this way, that way, sort of thing? Well, we want to make it straight across, and notice in the depiction, it's coming straight out in front of these side archways there. So we want it to be able to hold the same number or maybe a couple more people on it. We want it to be the same height it is now, and the kneelers at the same height they are now, maybe not as angled. Okay, because how many of you like slipping off of those things during communion? Anybody? Anybody? Right? But bring it out and have it freestanding on the floor. Okay, not tied to a step, in other words. Have it freestanding but the same height. And then that also helps the clergy and assisting ministers in giving out communion. We're right there at the level where we can easily give the body and blood of Christ. If we're standing on the same level rather than a step up. Because what do I have to do when I'm up here and you're kneeling down there? Bending over all the time, right? But if I'm down here and you're at the same level, it's a little bit easier for the flow, right? And so that's one of the concepts we're looking at there. Same communion rail, just repurposed, put together in a straight line is what we're looking at there. Okay? Any other questions on that? Yes?
Are you going to have the doors to close in the middle like you have now too?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Actually, we haven't even talked about the doors. We're just assuming they'll stay there. Yeah.
No, but that's 4 people, so.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Okay, now for the big reveal on our 8th day artwork. Remember the theme of the jeweled windows that are jewels, and the stuff we found from the dedication booklet, and then we kind of amped it up a little bit with the New Jerusalem, New Creation theme. And we started thinking, what can we do to use our space to catechize, to teach? Well, images are always good. And so we've seen some artwork from Out and Rive and others as well. And we like the kind of images they do. And so look above the columns. You see these wonderful triangular spaces that are just blank canvases crying out for something to teach us, right? And so that's the idea we've been working with, of taking this 8th day theme, or New Jerusalem, New Creation theme, and put some biblical images up there. Before I get to that, another thing we want to do with paint is finish our columns. Okay, now, number one, these columns that you see here will be cleaned, and then the grout line in between there will be highlighted. So you say, yeah, that's a column that really stands out here. But notice we have some other columns that are kind of missing from view. Have you ever noticed our missing columns? Look right up there where the hymn board is, or over there, or in the back. You've got the same kind of thing. It's what they call in the architecture business floating arches. See this arch up here front here? Just stops at the top there, the capital, and the line with the sight does not come down. Okay, and so what Out and Rive can do for us is paint that to make it look like a column. Make it match. And then it continues that architectural line there. Okay, so that's another feature of the paint work can be done. Okay, now to our 8th day artwork here. We're going to do this a little catechetically here, see if you can figure out the image. How's that? Okay, try this one. What would this be teaching you? If it's up there somewhere.
Water to wine, the wedding at Cana.
The wedding at Cana from John chapter 2, a nice image of the new creation that Jesus brings, his first miracle. And you can see water turning into wine. Now, you have to remember, it looks this big here, It's going to look bigger up there on that size space. So you'll be able to see, oh, that's water turning into wine. And you've got the 6 jars there. Now we can talk about that story, can't we? And what it means. All right, next one. Don't just shout it out. Don't be shy.
The flood.
Noah's flood, but let's be more precise. There's something else in there that tells you what part of the Noah's flood story.
God's promise never to flood the whole earth again.
Yes, this is the after the flood image, the ark. The doors open, the rainbow, new creation. You see some mountains and other things there in that sketch. All right, so highlighting new creation. Now we can teach about things like baptism even. What happens when you're baptized? You get baptized into new creation, sort of thing. All right? Next one. This is one of my favorites, by the way. Who said 10 virgins? But I don't see any ladies in there. How did you know it's the 10 virgins? The lamps, right? And if you take a closer up look, you see that some of these lamps are not lit, because they ran out of oil. Remember that part of the story? And some of these lamps are lit. Okay. What else do you notice in that? The ones that are lit are inside the cross. They're inside. I love how they depicted this, right, in the cross there. Those who are outside of the cross, outside of Christ, get to stay outside in the nighttime sky. Yeah, that sort of thing. All right, very good. Try this one.
Lost lamb.
What's that?
Tree of Life and Lost Lamb. That's what we have so far.
Tree of Life and Lost Lamb.
Revelation.
Yeah. Well, this is Revelation 22, the Lamb and the River of Life and the Tree of Life. Okay. Now, again, these are concept sketches. We're also going back and forth with our good friends at Outenrive. We want to have the Lamb be a little more prominent, maybe central, there sort of thing there. And I think you kind of, whoever said Lost Lamb kind of confirmed our suspicion on the committee. We want him to be there so you know he's there and not lost, right? All right, how about this one? Gathered around the throne. Who is gathered around the throne?
The saints.
Saints or the great multitude from every nation, right? And so we want to make sure we get these many people here depicted with different hair colors and skin colors and things like that to depict the great multitude from every nation, right? All right. What's this one?
Second coming.
The Son of Man coming on the clouds, Matthew 24 there. Talks about the sound of the trumpet. That's why trumpets are in there. You've got Jesus with the clouds around there and all that. Okay? So I'd say that's a New Jerusalem kind of theme, wouldn't you? Right? The last day coming. And here's one we have struggled with, to be honest. It's no fault of our friends at Outenrive. Just as the committee, we're just not sure we've given the right direction. We're not sure we've had a good idea ourselves. What would you think this one is? Okay, you're stumped. I'll give you the clue. It's supposed to be the bride of the Lamb in the New Jerusalem, right? And so we're going to have to go back and redo this one. This is on the committee. This is not on Outenrive. This is on the committee. We got to figure out something. We'll probably might just do something totally different from other options we've looked at. So that's that one there. And finally, this one. What does this look like?
Ark of the Covenant.
What's that?
Ark of the Covenant.
Well, you see the Ark of the Covenant. Yep.
Crossing the Jordan.
Crossing, not the Red Sea, but the Jordan. And you kind of touched on something, Grace, that the committee was looking at too. The wall of water might suggest Red Sea, but I'm not sure that's in the story of the crossing of the Jordan, but yes, the priests or the Israelites carrying the Ark of the Covenant across the Jordan into where? The Promised Land, right? So there's that theme for us there. So we're going to want to, tweak these a little bit and everything like that. Now, speaking of these Eighth Day images here, what will happen with them is they will not be painted directly on the wall. They'll be painted on panels, and those panels will be attached to the wall. Okay? And that's to preserve the paintings. Because what happens if water leaks in through a window or from the roof up there or something like that and down the wall, you don't want to have to redo the painting every now and again. You want to be able to save the painting and have that just attached to it there. So, and notice how many images we can put up here above the pillars. 8. Isn't the symbolism wonderful? I'm liking this number 8. And how many sides do we have on the baptismal font? Anybody know? 8. Okay, good. All right, so that's Joshua 3 crossing the River Jordan. Okay, so I'll give you a little clue. It's on what the actual artwork from Mountain Ride can look like. Right? It's one thing to see sketches, and we on the committee are constantly saying, just remember, this is a sketch, this is the idea, this is the concept. But they are very good at giving us some detailed artwork. If any of you have been to St. Paul's in Hamel, Illinois, or maybe you know the story, a few years ago they had a fire erupt in their basement and burned much of the back of their church, or the actually front of their church with the back of the building. And so they had to rehab everything there. But you can see, Alton and I worked on this, and you can see a lot of the artwork and how they do things. They chose to put their baptismal font in the center, and notice wider pews for being able to get around it. Notice LVT tile down here, and that's ceramic tile up there to set the chancel apart. That's God's space. But they have artwork there and there. And one of the very fascinating things that I have learned in this process is look at these lines right up here. Right? When you look at that, you think they are what? Wood. But they're not. When they opened that space up, because for a lot of years it wasn't opened up in that church, they noticed this tremendous artwork or woodwork back here. Well, they covered it up with wallboard, drywall, and then they put drywall strips down it and painted it to look like wood. So you walk in, you cannot tell the difference. Okay. Let's see. I think that's all I wanted to highlight there. But they have some images over on the sides as well. This side. There's notice some decorative touches there, and they went with another Trinitarian theme up here, the Trinity symbol, then holy, holy, holy. If you speak German, it's the same thing there. Heilig, heilig, heilig. Here's an example of some of their artwork in a different church, just to give you an idea of kind of the detail, the vibrant colors, that sort of thing. Another example there, some angels there, and then the Godhead down here. And there's an example of the finding of Jesus in the temple on a side wall of a building. Notice the detail and what it could look like. Notice the rich, vibrant colors there. Right? And this is pretty amazing too. Here's a before shot of a capital on top of a pillar here, or a column. The before shot, and then that's all artwork. Turning that into looking like stone that's been imprinted. Okay, so some pretty amazing work they can do. And then, back to the finishing our columns on the sides here. I noticed this one. Here's a doorway that to the eye looks like it's made of stones, right? That's all paint. that one I did.
The doors also painted to like wood.
Oh, the door's painted with the wood grain. Okay, good. I didn't realize that. Good, good. Okay. And so for paint colors, what we are looking at, what Outright has recommended, he brought us some big boards here. This is a color he's looking at for the ceiling, which would be way up there, right, and the beams and purlins and all that. Now, if you look at it straight on like this, it looks kind of like a tan, light tan kind of color. But when it's up there, in contrast with the darker beams and light shining on it, okay, it'll look pretty much white. Okay, brighten the place up. Because we don't want real white up there because then it'll be too much. Okay, so there's a ceiling color, and then here's a color that he said would be good for what's called the clerestory windows, the windows up on top, right? So kind of coming down a couple of shades, but in the same color category or palette. Yeah, okay. And then a couple of options for the side walls down around the pews here. Okay, and then you put them together and they might look something like this. Okay, let's see if I can hold all of these. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Put that up on top for the ceiling. So something like that. Right? Which will help things stand out. Okay. Now, we've had a lot of interesting discussions on the color. And we're going with the nice earth tones so that, quite honestly, you don't want people coming into the church and saying, wow, I love the color of those walls. Right? Let's say we painted them pink or bright yellow. Guess what people would leave here saying after church some Sunday? Wow, did you see that yellow wall? And they might like the yellow, or they might say, that was so distracting, right? So we're going with nice neutral colors that will help brighten up the space so you don't even notice they're there. Because where do you want your eyes focused? Up front. That's where the color's going to be, sort of thing, right? So that's a little bit on the paint colors. All right. I think that's it. Now, we do have the all those images here in the originals that Outright has sent us. You can look at them in more detail if you like. Flip through slides here if you want. Let's open it up for questions, and that's a big reason Andrew's here to answer any questions on the painting and things like that. So, okay. Again, these are concepts, ideas. No decisions have been made. We're just floating these things out, saying, okay, where are we going to go now? So, let the arrows fly. Yes.
Are you going to keep the same finish of the walls that I don't know the technical term for it, but the stucco?
The texture? Yeah. We're not changing the finish or the texture of the walls.
I think it's stressed anyway.
Stucco?
Yeah, stucco.
Yeah, no, we're not changing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
With the double drywall on the ceiling, how much weight will that add to our roof structure, the weight on the top?
That is a good question. I don't have the number, but the architect and their engineers studied it. That took a little while for them to study it, and they came back and said, yeah, that ceiling will hold that weight. And that's when they gave us those 3 options for the ceiling. So they're confident it will hold the weight. I think Mark, you know.
Is it possible to put this presentation on our church website so people who aren't here to see this or come back and look at it again?
We are recording it. We'll do our best to put it on the website, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So the hardening, that's going to carry down on these sidewalls also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that, sorry. Yeah, it'll include the ceiling on the other side of the arches. Yes.
And is it possible to put any lighting behind the windows up front because nobody actually sees the, except in the closet?
Yes, that is in the hopper as well. We got them looking into the lighting up there, a timer or something like that, yeah. Okay, Kevin?
Pastor, you didn't say a lot more about the pews, other than I know they're going to be spaced differently.
Mhm.
Has the committee considered kneelers for the pews too? Is that something?
Yes, we have been considering kneelers for the pews, so we can kneel during confession times or prayer, things like that. Yes. Mhm. Yes.
Have you guys given any thought to more lighting in the chancel area?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's in the works as well. That's one of the pieces we're waiting on to figure out what they're coming up with. And, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention the uplights. We do know about that. They're looking at, with the lighter ceiling up there, putting LED strips on top of the beams that are up there. You wouldn't be able to see the strips, but they would light up and reflect that light off the ceiling. Yeah. Mhm. And then other things from the chancel as well. Yes, Bill?
Speaking of the dealers, I know that's kind of a controversial thing. Is that something that we decided in voters, should we go with dealers or not?
We will bring everything to the voters, yes. Mhm. And we'll talk about the kneelers. Yeah.
The communion rail, I know it's gonna be like a straight line
Mhm.
and run forward. Are you gonna be able to walk around onto the altar area?
Yes, yes. The idea is you'd be able to walk around the rail and either up the archway there or up into the chancel. Yes. Mhm. Yes.
You were mentioning on the pillars that they were going to be, did you say cleaned up and
Clean
grounded?
and then the grout line highlighted. Yeah.
What about the arches then? Because they're
Yeah,
not
same-
gonna
same
match
thing for those, yeah.
Everything for the,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. Joel?
I know St. Paul the Pier ran into a problem with the circulation of the air. Are we going to put any fans way up high to move the air at all to disturb or to, I can say it in German, Uber, to move it about?
Circulated?
Yeah, mix it up.
Honestly, we have not talked about fans, have we? No, I'll be honest, we have not talked about that.
And just as an aside, you want to make sure that the fire marshal checks off on all that, because they'll shut you down in a heartbeat.
Okay. Yep. Other questions, comments? Yes. I'm sorry.
The lights that are on the wall, sconces on the wall, will they be changed to LED?
Yeah, we're looking at those lights, same as up above here, changing them to brighter LED lights. And with the soffit moved up a little bit, it'll show more light. Because you can see what happens with these lights now. The light gets stuck in that corner, doesn't it? Right, so we want to give it a little more room to get out and brighten the place up. Yes, John?
Soffit given to the sound system, like replacing the black speakers with something that would fade the wall.
Yes. That thought was given to the sound system when we first put it in 2014. We're kind of living with it now because we've had this notion that we want to do something in here since we put that in, and we can contact the guy we work with for the sound system and say, hey, let's match the color now. Yeah.
In previous churches, we painted them also in wall color,
Mhm.
and then they just kind of blend in with the wall. They don't stand out.
Yeah. Thank you for catching all kinds of details that I didn't bring up. Otherwise, we'll be here for 5 hours.
Inboard stay in the same place?
Sure.
Well, you're going to paint them. I mean, you're going to paint them.
We'll paint the wall behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times we'll just disconnect them, take them down, or just wrap them in plastic.
Yes, John? And then
Color out of the windows, so that there's something placed in the crown building in the white space to highlight.
You didn't talk about the
Oh,
crown molding.
I'm sorry, I didn't talk about the crown molding. Thank you. Admiral was giving us another set of a palette of colors, possible colors, okay, that would blend well with the windows and these neutral tones here. And I believe, let's see, yeah, accent colors. Here are some ideas that could be used on the crown molding. Yeah. As well as the archway around the rear ducts. Yes, and then Mark?
Will we get an overall cost or an a la carte cost for each of these features eventually?
That's what the building committee is working on. Yes, we'll have the costs there and breakdowns and all of that, yeah. Yeah, and they're tasked with trying to figure out, okay, what can we do with the money we have? How can we do a capital campaign like we've talked about before as well? How can we prioritize certain things? Yeah, that will be part of the discussion. Yep.
I'll just put forward a gentle plea to the Interiors Committee. I know this has perhaps been discussed, but the location of the baptismal font in the chancel area is a great place. And the Bible specifies no place to locate your baptismal font in the church sanctuary. It is not the opera. But I think there is a lot of wonderful argument to be made to have the baptismal font in some ways mirroring what they're doing at St. Paul Hamel. This is very common in Lutheran churches now, to locate the baptismal font at the entrance to the nave. And the reason for that, theologically, would be, and this would be in keeping with the New Jerusalem theme, that we're entering a holy space, and baptism is the means by which we do enter into God's family. And there was a mention made at the beginning that one of the sort of founding principles here that the Interiors Committee is working with is accessibility to all. And to me, there's no better reminder of baptism accessible to all, and a reminder to all that we literally pass by and are able to touch that baptismal font when we enter into this sacred space for divine service. It also struck me this morning that from the reading from Romans 6, which are the beginning words of the funeral rite. And traditionally, those words are spoken at the beginning of a rite of Christian burial from the entrance to the nave. And there could be no better place to refer to baptism when that pall is put over the casket next to the baptismal font, while the pastor's reading the words, "Do you not know that all of you who have been baptized into Christ were baptized into his death, and so in his resurrection too." And there's a wonderful imagery with the font located on the central axis of the building as well, that when you come into this building, you are looking literally from baptism straight up to the altar where we receive the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ. So I would put in a gentle plea to ask the Interiors Committee to consider that location very carefully.
Okay.
It would mean that you'd need more space back here at the back of the nave as well. But I think there is a wonderful argument to be made that it would provide us, all of us, when we're entering this space. That was me. That's how God brought me into this place in the first place. So I just would make
Remember your baptism.
Yep.
Yeah, and if I can just spin off on that a little bit. Yeah, the drawing showed it here. That was, we had one person on the committee, so we said, please show us a sketch that way. We've floated other ideas. It could be front and center right here, up front. Or St. Paul Hamel, they chose to put it right in the middle. Or it could be at the back there. You're right, the Bible says nothing about where to put it. So this is something we do in Christian freedom, but we also want to do it with some, what do they call it, intentionality. We want to send a message. Baptism is important, and you bring up some very good reasons there, the Christian burial service and all that, coming into the church. Yeah, very good, thank you. Yes, Mark?
Is there a time frame for when the next meeting or discussion will take place, or when this will need to be completed, when it's tied in with the boarding coming in? Is there an overall plan for schedule that we
As far as the next meeting for us, no, we don't have anything on the horizon just yet. Chiefly because we're still waiting on a couple big pieces from our contractor, for things like the lighting and the duct work over here, things like that. Once we have that, then we can move forward with some of the decision making, right? And getting more information out like we are doing today.
Does this need to go in before the organs installed?
Yes.
Between us
Yeah, I've been mentioning this a few times in the last several weeks that the organ company is looking for this, that when they come to install the organ, all of the sanctuary work has been done for 4 weeks. Okay, so all the dust can settle, get out of the ductwork and all that kind of thing. So they want it done for 4 weeks. So then we back up from that on when the contractor and outright the artist can think they can get the work done there. So that's how we'll have to move on it. We will be bringing everything to the congregation, right? We've been promising that all along, so we will have more meetings. We just have to schedule them once we get this bit of information. I do have a little note here. I was going to wrap it up with this anyway, but we don't have to wrap it up. I'm going to bring this out anyway. I got an email just this last Friday from Parsons, the organ company. We've been working with a timetable to put the organ back in early November. So that would mean back it up to early October when the work in here needs to be done. And the contractor said, well, with that timetable, he could start, say, August 1 and get it all done, right? So that's why we've been, or at least I've been sweating bullets. I don't know if anybody else has. I've been sweating bullets. It's getting close to August here. We got to make decisions because we're not going to shortchange the congregation and this sort of thing. Well, Friday I get this email from the organ company, and basically they're saying that the organ they're working on now is going to take some more work than they thought. Here we found years of hidden neglect and water damage requiring hundreds of additional hours of wood pipe and Winchester repairs that we had not planned on, as in the other organ. They've been working on ours as well. Okay. Further, we are correcting the work of well-meaning hobbyists who have altered the organ in ways that would hamper the successful outcome of our work. I love that, well-meaning hobbyists. People who don't know how to build organs, in other words. We continue to work on your instrument in early September, and it's clear that the construction hours cannot be completed in time for a November installation. We currently plan on having shop work completed in late January, early February, which moves the installation of the organ at Hope from November to late February, or possibly the first week of March. Okay, the installation and tonal finishing should take no more than 3 weeks, which will provide at least 1 month to prepare for using the organ on Easter. Okay. Now, when I saw that email, I thought, delay. Then it dawned on me, wait, there's a silver lining there. This is a blessing because we're not ready yet on this end. So that might help answer the question on the time frame. We want to get this information, go through the right steps, the congregation, all that, as well as keep contractor and all the subcontractors on task and all that good stuff. So please don't see that as a setback, but I'm looking at it as a gift from God. We have some time to make sure we get this work done. Yeah. Yes, Peg, and then Dave.
Luckily, Easter's late next year. I think it's April 21st.
Okay. Okay. And I did respond back to them and said, okay, that's fine. I'd rather we do it right, do it correctly, and rather than pull to a certain timeline that we had agreed upon before. Right? That was my response by email. David.
Could you give a status on decision point on the placement of the altar/table, bringing it out to make it look more like a table for the Last Supper? And the same, I just thought of this as well. We're talking about the 8th day, new creation. You heavens, new earth, the marriage supper of the Lamb, would advance that catechesis to have it look a little bit more like a table.
Yeah, we basically, on the committee, said we want to keep the altar where it is. And one, I think, one reason is, we're not sure how much space we really have to play with up here. Okay? But two, there have been some strong feelings in the committee, and I know others in the congregation, keep the altar against the wall, against the reredos sort of thing as well. I mean, I understand the table imagery and everything like that. I think that's another good theological thing that we could do. But I think right now we're happy with it against the wall and providing the space out there, not crowding the space too much. A second thing on that is we're not sure if the flooring up here would hold it when you bring it out. It's a structural concern as well. So it's kind of difficult to get down there and see exactly how it's built up to hold all that weight. So we're just not sure if we bring it out, would that support it? Don't know. So that might be that's kind of the second big argument that we've come across.
I'd like to bring attention to the committee safety concern. On the left here, there's lots of low wide openings. I think now that I have grandchildren, or I had children before, but they were under 24, that I think they can get through pretty easily. That's quite a problem up there. It's low to get back there. I think plexiglass or a horizontal paving or something to prevent coming through those openings.
Okay, fair enough. Committee members, can we put that on our notes to address that? Yeah, good, thank you. Yes.
I was going to say, on that note, in St. Paul's, Hamel, right there, we actually installed plexiglass. We ripped out what they had and installed a plexiglass rail system, so you can see right through when you sit down, and it's safe for the children and everything too. So
Okay.
it's possible.
Okay, that is a possibility, yes. Okay, thank you. Good, good. I see other hands. Jim.
The Parsons going to own to the contract and not charge us more for all this obvious,
Yes.
That wasn't our organ.
That was, yeah, that wasn't our organ that had the hobbyist problems. But that's why ours is getting moved down the road, or delayed a little bit. But that was one question I asked. So what will this do to the price? And they said, no extra price. They're holding it to the contract, yes.
Yeah, to be clear, all the bad stuff on the organ is not our organ.
thank you.
They have two organs in there, a train wreck and then ours. But the train wreck is ahead of us in the line and it's causing us delay, but no change to the cost.
Yeah. So, whew, dodge that. Yes. All right. Don't be shy. Other questions, comments?
I think a comment, one of the things that Mike told us about the whole idea of basically using earth tones from lighter coming down darker, and even the color of the rail. One of the things that he suggested to us is that none of these colors are determined until huge, large chunks of them are painted on the wall, and a large group of people come in to actually see them. And so they understand that those colors and tones can change. And he would suggest that you literally get a big chunk and you get people in here to be able to see it. Same way with the color behind the Rare that we've talked about. Is this like hard blue? Is it a teal? Obviously that will help the wood stand out, but he said, they can paint that and then we can decide, not when you get it up there and see it. So he's going to be flexible with us. And I think we will look to have other people that know about paint color and stuff, which would, I don't know about the rest of the men, but it would not be me. And actually see large chunks of it on the wall so you can actually see if it gives the effect that you want.
Also, we did Holy Cross Lutheran in South St. Louis here, and we did the same in the dark thing behind the altar. And you can go into that church and see kind of what it was here.
I didn't see any Holy Cross on your website. I was looking for it, but
It's fairly new job.
okay. It just hasn't been added yet, okay. And then I went to the Holy Cross website. I think that was the old look they had on their website, so couldn't do that. Yeah, I've heard that's good, I've not seen it. So, yeah, Susan and Joel.
Okay, in seeing our altar now, the red carpet brings the color to the altar
Mm-hmm.
and brightness. And then looking down, I'm going, oh, the cushions are the same thing on the pews. What about the cushions on the pews? Is that going to change, or are they going to remain the same?
It could. I would say that for the building committee, there are all these we have the cost of the kneelers. It's just a linear foot. There's basically two styles, and you just know how much they cost. Same way with things like those pew cushions. We're going to gather all those kind of numbers together, and then it's going to be a matter of what do you want to do, how do we prioritize them, is it worth changing them. During the process, no one said change the color of the pew cushions, but several people said do not get rid of the pew cushions. We don't understand the word, but nobody really gave any directive, and I think that'll be a question. Will you be happy with the red if the colors change, or will that be something that, and again, it's just a linear foot, the cost, and we'll have all of those for the congregation to consider.
Yeah, so I was going to answer that. The pew cushions are staying. The color, we can debate that, but the cushions are staying. The carpet must go for the sound, right, for the acoustics. And so we only wanted to slay one sacred cow on that one. So, yeah. Was there another hand up? Yeah, Joel.
We fix that little circle around the cross while we got those.
Yes, that's on the radar as well, yes. Yeah. We just need to wait until they get up and say, hey, can you fix that? Yeah. We've talked about that already.
I was just going to encourage, you have the opportunity to go to Holy Cross, and I know we just said this a minute ago, but I've seen it myself. It is spectacular, it's beautiful, so I'm sure that Pastor Rose would be glad to have you come visit and see their space.
Okay? Shout out for Holy Cross. Anything else? Okay, this will not be the last time we get to discuss it, so again, think about these things, and now you're up to speed on where we've been with the committee and things we're putting together here, so think about it, discuss it, that sort of thing. I think we have a lot of great potential here. I'll just leave you with this thought. The building we're in was given to us by people who came before us. We celebrated that a couple of years ago at the 100th anniversary, right? Those who came before us left a legacy, right? It's a beautiful building we're in right now, and it's beautiful. We're not saying it's not. We're saying it's beautiful. And so the real question is, what kind of legacy do we want to leave for those who come after us? Our children, our grandchildren, those who come to the faith after we're dead and gone, sort of thing. And so that's what I would encourage you to think about as well. So, fast forward, I don't know, 10, 20 years, right? What do you think some of these kinds of upgrades, renovations can do to teach the faith that we hold so dear? I think that would be a good way to think about this. What are we leaving for those who come after us? It's very, very easy and simple to get locked into our little minds right here, our mindset. But what are we leaving for the next generation? Remember our anniversary theme. Who remembers? Our hope for years to come, right? We wanted to set that tone there. That we're wanting to keep things going for the next 100 years, right? And so this is part of that process that we've been. The organ is part of it as well. Having a nice refurbished organ, so that will continue to work and all that good stuff. So that's the spirit we're doing all of this in. All right. So I'll leave you with that, and thank you very much for your attention, for your comments, your questions. Stuff is up here if you want to look at it. Please help yourself. And we'll figure out a way where we can have this out more regularly from now on. Okay? Now that we have the pieces. All right? Thank you.